he can't protect you. You can't escape him. And it hurts me to my heart. Because I know there's no other race that have to go through this. And so just by virtue of you all being here today, just by virtue of your parents being here, filled with pride watching you get ready to be inducted, or knowing that you are already part of such a great organization in the Kappa League, it says we do have some hope. In spite of all of the madness and chaos that's out there, we have hope. I didn't see that hope a few years back. I didn't. In 2005, I found myself standing in front of railroad tracks in South Florida. And the only thing that was going through my mind at that time was how much pain I was going to feel when I jumped in front of an oncoming train. Whether I would die instantly or whether I had to suffer moments of agonizing pain when that train crushed my body. See, that day I stood there, I was a broken man. I was homeless. I was recently released from prison. I was hooked on drugs. Unemployed. The only thing I owned were the clothes on my back. I didn't have hope. I didn't have the Kappa League. I was all alone. And I knew that my mother didn't raise me to be in that position, but there I was that day. And I was ready to end my life. But by the grace of God, that train didn't come that day. And I crossed those tracks and I walked a couple blocks, and to the left of me was a place where I was able to check in and seek treatment, drug treatment. And after completing that program, that treatment program, I moved into a homeless shelter. And it was while I was living there that I decided that I wanted to do something to not use drugs anymore. And so I decided to go to school. And I enrolled at Miami-Dade College and did well enough to graduate at the top of the class and encouraged to continue my education, and I did. I pursued a bachelor's in public safety management with a concentration in criminal justice. And I picked that because I was used to committing crime on the street, so I figured at least I'd walk into that class knowing a little something. And I did well again, and eventually, as my introducer noted, that I was accepted into law school. And in May of 2014, I graduated with my Juris Doctorate degree. I want to go back though to when I first crossed those railroad tracks. I remember when, God knows how long I stood there just waiting on that train to come, but eventually when I broke out of that zone or whatever it was and I crossed those tracks, immediately after crossing, I asked myself a question. Very simple question. Like Desmond, if you were to have died that day, right now, that train were to kill you right now, how many people would come to your funeral? And the immediate answer was 0. And I didn't like that. I was homeless, hooked on drugs. When you're out there in the streets, you're not trying to hang around family. And so I would have died and nobody would have known who I was, and I would have been buried in an unmarked grave or a pauper's grave. And I didn't like that. So I kind of changed the facts around a little bit and said, okay, Desmond, you died, and they have your picture on the front page of the Miami Herald or the Orlando Sentinel, Desmond killed by train. How many people would come to your funeral? And after thinking for a while, I came up with 4 people. 4. living on this earth, after all the different relationships, after all the different places that I have gone or visited or lived, you mean to tell me only 4 people would care if you died? Have your life been that insignificant? And that bothered me. And I remember taking that feeling with me when I went into treatment. And as it so happened that year, while I was in treatment, a lady by the name of Rosa Parks died. You guys know Rosa Parks, right? And they had her body laid in state in Washington, D.C., in the rotunda of the Capitol. So people were able to just like file by and pay her their last respects. And I remember sitting in a room by myself, and I was sitting down and I was watching television, and they were just showing how so many people was going by and paying their last respects to Rosa Parks. And almost every one of them had tears in their eyes. And I don't know what it was, but as I was watching that, something just like took over me and just hit me, and I jumped out of my chair and I started like, that's it, that's it. I started screaming at the TV, like pointing, talking about that's what I wanted. When I die, I wanted a lot of people to mourn me. I wanted a lot of people to cry. You know, and I started like really planning my funeral right then and there. I was like, where am I going to have it? I started thinking about all these different places. I ended up coming up with the football stadium for the Dolphins. Which y'all don't like the Dolphins? You don't like the Dolphins? Hey, I was down in Miami, so they changed their name a lot, so that's why I didn't know if it was Joe Robbie or Sun Life or whatever. But I came up with, I'm going to have my funeral in Joe Robbie or Sun Life Stadium, whatever it was, and I wanted people on the field. I wanted standing room only. That's what I wanted. So I started thinking, man, what type, of person could command that many people to come to their funeral? And I only came up with 2, right? I came up with like an athlete or a movie star. Now, I played a little football back in high school. Y'all can tell, right? Offensive line, I wasn't, I wish. Linebacker. That's right, linebacker. And fullback. But I played a little ball back then, but my knee was kind of shot, and so I didn't think I could make it, in the NFL. But as bad as the Dolphins have been playing, I probably still could make the team. Don't laugh, Orlando don't have a team yet. But so I was like, well, my knees are bad. I can't play football. So that only left me with what? Being a movie star. And when I thought about a movie star, the only person I could think about was Denzel Washington, right? Now, at least my wife tells me this, right? My wife tells me I'm not a bad-looking guy, and I believe my wife with all my heart, right? But even though I didn't think I was a bad-looking guy, I didn't think I was Denzel Washington type of handsome, And so I had got depressed. I tell people today, though, thank God I didn't think of Forrest Whitaker. Right? Because I got Forrest Whitaker. I know I got him. And as long as I don't take my shirt off, I think I can get Wesley Snipes too. Wesley Snipes got them abs. I only got like a 1-pack. But I think that if I would have thought of them, maybe I would have, in my head, I thought I would have a chance, but I didn't think of them. I thought of Denzel Washington. And so I got depressed again because, man, I couldn't be an actor. I couldn't be a movie star. It's very important. Very important right here. I couldn't be an athlete. And I couldn't be a movie star. So I got depressed because I didn't think that now I'm able to get a lot of people in my funeral. Then my mind went back to Rosa Parks. And here it was, this lady, she did one thing. She refused to give up her seat on the bus. And that one act have repercussions that we feel all the way up to today. Think about that. That one act And so in my head, I thought, well, man, wait a minute, Desmond, maybe if you could take that, all of that pain and that suffering and that low self-esteem and that misery, all of those things that led you to the railroad tracks, that made you want to jump in front of a train, if you could somehow take it and use it in such a way to where you could prevent other people from having to go to the railroad tracks, then maybe they can help other people, and those people can help other people, and before you know it, there'll be a whole bunch of people that will probably say, man, if it wasn't for Desmond helping such and such, he wouldn't have been able to help me, my life would not have been changed. Now, Joe Robbie Stadium holds a whole lot of people. About 70,000? So I had a lot of work to do. And I didn't even have a clue where to start. I really did. But it just so happened that one day I was in a meeting, a group meeting, and we were sharing stories and sharing, our thoughts about our drug addiction. And apparently I said something because a gentleman came and he approached me after the meeting and told me that I had said something that caused him to have what they call a paradigm shift. That I said something that caused him to look at life differently, to approach life differently. And now, rather than having a gloomy outlook in life, he have a more positive outlook in life, and he understands that he can succeed, right? Now, when he told me this, something happened inside of me. And at the time, I didn't know what it was, but all I knew was that it was a joy that I was feeling inside of me that I had never, ever experienced before in my entire life. And it felt good. It felt real good. It felt so good, I became addicted to it. I can tell you today that what that feeling was that I felt, right, it was a joy that, check it out now, that I was searching for all of my life. And didn't even know I was searching for. And you know what that joy is? That joy was discovering what God's purpose for me was. That's what it was. Sometimes I used to wonder, why am I here? What is in store for me? What am I supposed to do? What's the purpose of my life? And I discovered it that day. And it was very simple. It's a purpose that's inside each and every one of you all. And basically what it is that when you look at everything that God created, when you look at the trees, when you look at the grass, even when you look at the bees and the mosquitoes and the fishes, everything takes a little and gives a little. And so that purpose is that if you have been given life, if you have been given an opportunity to be a part of such a distinguished organization as the Kappa League, then your purpose is to take some of that and give it back. Help someone else. Because there's someone at your school, maybe even your own home or your neighborhood, that may not have had the privilege or the opportunity to get what you're getting. There may be someone in your home, in your neighborhood, or in your school that is worse off than you are. And whatever little you get, it allows you to help someone else less fortunate. That's what I discovered. And when I did that, guess what was revealed to me? I didn't need to get through. Because all of the pain and suffering that I went through for all those years, while I was homeless, when I was in prison, when I was hooked on drugs, all of that became worthwhile when I was able to save one life. All of that made my time on earth worthwhile.